14 years ago, mysterious towers called dungeons appeared all around the world. Those who clear the dungeon will gain money and power beyond their imagination, but returning alive from the dungeon is not easy as it may appear. Ali Baba, the son of the king of Balbad, runs away from his home and settles in the desert city of Kishan, whose only wish and desire now is to become a dungeon capturer. One day during work, Ali Baba meets a mysterious young boy, Aladdin, who had almost eaten all the fruits of the loaded cargo. When Ali Baba's boss, Brutal, sees his damaged goods, he becomes angry at both of them. Ali Baba, therefore, apologizes for Aladdin's actions. Aladdin then follows Ali Baba to his home, where Ali Baba shares his dream and knowledge of dungeon with him. The next day in the market, they bump into a slave girl, Morgiana, whose feet were shackled. Some people looked at her with pity, some with disgust. Aladdin takes a stand for her and breaks her shackles by playing his magical flute, but soon Butal asks for compensation for stealing his slave and becomes violent with her. Aladdin plays his flute to summon giant hands and defeats Butal with it. Both Ali Baba and Aladdin then run away from the scene. Later, Aladdin reveals to Ali Baba that the summoned hands from the flute are of his friend Hugo, a jinn. Ali Baba recognizes Aladdin's potential and the power of his magical flute. He tries to win his favor by taking him to play with girls, where Aladdin reveals his goal is to search for a jinn metal vessel for his friend Hugo. On their way back, Butal threatens them and asks for compensation. To settle the situation, Ali Baba agrees to work for him. The next day, Butal assigns the job of carrying the grapevines to them. They start their journey. Cargo goods also had some slaves for mines, including Morgiana. On their way to the Hyacinth Desert, the grapevine scent attracts vicious plants to attack them. Morgiana and the little girl fall into the cliff. Butal orders workers to take care of his goods instead of helping them. Despite his good endurance, Ali Baba wasn't able to hold his anger in this situation. Ali Baba punches Butal and finally for the first time takes a stand and saves those girls with the help of Aladdin and Hugo. Suddenly Ali Baba gets trapped in plants, so Aladdin uses his magic turban like a flying carpet to carry all the grapevines and sacrifice them to save him. Moved by his courage, Aladdin asks him to become friends, to which Ali Baba agrees. Then both set off to the dungeon to start a new adventure. When Ali Baba and Aladdin arrive at the entrance of the dungeon, Amun, they accidentally enter it without any plan. Soon they face many dangers of the dungeon together. Afterwards, Ali Baba notices Aladdin's exhausted state. Aladdin reveals that his energy gets consumed every time he summons Hugo. After dealing with monsters, Aladdin faints of exhaustion. Ali Baba then takes care of an unconscious Aladdin. Later, Ali Baba meets Jamal, the chief of Kishan city, with his slaves Morgiana and Golta, who have also entered the dungeon. Jamal tries to take the unconscious Aladdin away and orders Golta to kill Ali Baba, but Ali Baba easily fends off Golta. After confronting each other, both Ali Baba and Jamal decide to travel in a dungeon together for their own reasons. The group then notice a trap on their way. Ali Baba goes to disarm it at Jamal's request, but after disarming the trap, Ali Baba is set on fire and then vanishes, leaving only ashes behind. Jamal and his group consider Ali Baba dead and continue their journey. When later Aladdin wakes up, Jamal hides everything about Ali Baba and then leaves Aladdin in Morgiana's care. She tells Aladdin about Ali Baba's death. When Aladdin was processing this shocking news, Ali Baba appears and tries to take Aladdin away from Jamal. Jamal, upon seeing this, orders Morgiana to stop them, but she fails the attempt. Thus Ali Baba and Aladdin manage to flee. Afterward, Ali Baba and Aladdin find a door in the dungeon. They open it and discover the necropolis, the city of the dead. They reach the treasure room of the city and find the injured Golta there. While they are distracted by Golta, Morgiana suddenly appears and kicks Aladdin away. Jamal and Ali Baba fight each other with their swords. Ali Baba defeats him with his amazing sword skills, and surprised, Jamal questions Ali Baba's true identity. Reluctant to accept his defeat, Jamal orders Morgiana to kill Ali Baba. Morgiana hesitates first but complies with the orders. Aladdin destroys her sword with his magic and saves Ali Baba. He then binds Morgiana with his magic wand to stop her from attacking. Jamal urges Aladdin to recognize him as a king, but he declines. Later, Jinn named Amun appears and declares that they have cleared the dungeon, greets Aladdin as a Magi, and explains that Magi is someone who chooses the king candidate. Suddenly, someone strikes the tower from the outside, causing the tower to crumble. Golta frees Morgiana from her chains and grabs Jamal to die with him, while Amun helps Aladdin. Ali Baba and Morgiana escape. On the way out, Ali Baba and Aladdin chat about their goals and promise each other to go on more adventures. Outside, Ali Baba finds himself welcomed by the villagers, but he finds Aladdin missing. Meanwhile, in the plains, the Kuga clansmen find Aladdin sleeping. In the city of Kishan, Alibaba uses the treasure to free all the slaves including Morgiana and sets off to find Aladdin. Then he sets off on his journey to find Aladdin. After waking up, Aladdin finds himself in the Kuga clan. The Kuga clan takes good care of him and Aladdin also helps the clan in resolving their conflicts with the Ku Empire. He then sets off with a caravan to reunite with his friend Alibaba. On his way to Balbed City, he meets Morgiana. Thus, two of them decide to travel together. Before entering Balbed City they meet Sin, who was robbed by thieves. To repay Aladdin for his help, Sin gives them a tour of a city and gives them room in the hotel to stay in. Later, Aladdin asks the maid about the ship heading to the Dark Continent. She tells him it will be hard to find it now because of Fog Troop and their current leader, named Alibaba the Miracle Man. They are thieves who possess strange magical weapons and not only attack the rich and noble but also distribute goods and money among the poor. Aladdin was surprised by this news but did not think too much about it. During lunch, Sin introduces his two men, Masroor and Jafar, to them. After lunch, Aladdin summons Hugo and reveals his Magi identity. Sin also reintroduces himself as Sinbad, the king of Sindria. Aladdin and Sinbad then decide to work together to take Fog Troop down. They guard the mansion of Fog Troop's next victim. The Fog Troop attacks the mansion. During the fight, Qasim, a member of the gang, captures Morgiana and Jafar. Aladdin summons Hugo to save them. But a man suddenly steps forward from the group of thieves and uncovers his face, and that man is none other than his friend, Alibaba. Perplexed, Aladdin tries to remind him of their promise, but in response, Alibaba apologizes that he can't keep it. Upon army arrival, he summons Flames of Ammon's sword and escapes with Fog Troop. This incident made Alibaba depressed. Suddenly, Morgiana brought Alibaba by force to see Aladdin and explain himself. Morgiana reminds Alibaba of the serious damage done by the Fog Troop. Aladdin asks Alibaba his reasons for joining the Fog Troop. Alibaba explains that he and his childhood friend, Qasim, were raised in slums. His mother was a prostitute. She adopted Qasim and his sister. But after Alibaba's mother's death, Qasim changed and resorted to crimes. But Alibaba was forced to leave the slums after he discovered that his true father was the king of Balbad, and lived in his father's care for 3 years. One day he sneaked out of the castle and met Qasim by chance. During their conversation, he revealed the tunnels he used to sneak out. Alibaba regrets meeting Qasim because he used the same tunnel to steal the palace treasury. For this reason he ran away from the palace instead of taking the throne according to his father's wishes. Alibaba reveals that he understood Qasim's motives as the government ignored the people from the slums when they were infected by a plague. Alibaba explains that for this reason, he joined the Fog Troop. Aladdin reminds Alibaba to be cautious because the current situation can become worse even with one small mistake and promises to support him. Suddenly Fog Troop members attack the hotel. Qasim tries to take Alibaba away but they are defeated by Sinbad and his group. Sinbad then challenges Alibaba to fight him as the gang leader. Alibaba accepts his challenge and gets knocked down when he tries to strike first. Sinbad then offers to let him join the Fog Troop. Alibaba hesitates at first but accepts after understanding Sinbad's intentions. Sinbad convinces Alibaba to accompany him to the palace and negotiate with his brother to help the people. The next day, the townspeople read Alibaba's message and arrive at the palace with hope for a better life. In King Ahmed's royal court, Alibaba requests the king to help the people in the slums. In exchange, he will disband the Fog Troop. However, Ahmed refuses to acknowledge Alibaba or answer his request. At the same time, Ahmed greets financial advisor Markio and his guest Judar, priest and magi of the Ku Empire, and reveals that he has given all Balbad's trading rights to the Ku Empire. After the failed negotiation, Sinbad calls Alibaba to declare the negotiation result to the citizens. After Sinbad announced the results, people became agitated and tense. Alibaba witnesses Sinbad's skills of raising people's morale and giving them new hope. Alibaba found himself useless in comparison to Sinbad. Suddenly Judar appears and offers Sinbad to join him. Judar realizes that Aladdin is a magi and mocks Alibaba's strength as Aladdin's king candidate. Aladdin and Judar start a fight. Judar floats in the air and attacks with ice magic. Hugo destroys the icicles and jumps to chop Judar down to the ground. Judar uses more of his ice magic, but Hugo body blocks it for Aladdin. Then Aladdin calls the wounded Hugo back to the flute but Hugo refuses. Judar tries to attack Aladdin again with magic, but Morgiana saves him while Alibaba attacks Judar cutting through his magic shield. Hugo sneaks up a punch on Judar that pushes him against the wall, and then punches him another several times. Judar then pierces Hugo with a huge ice spear, but Hugo makes use of his last strength to crush him with his hands. Hugo tries to finish Judar, but one of the princesses of the Ku Empire comes and saves Judar in time. She defeats Hugo with her metal vessel, Vane, in one blow. Aladdin becomes furious and attacks her to avenge Hugo. However, Sinbad intervenes and convinces the princess to retreat. After she leaves, Aladdin realizes that from his flute Hugo's mark is gone and becomes depressed. Later, Morgiana and Alibaba find that Aladdin has fainted and drained all his power in bringing Hugo back. Soon after that, Alibaba's brother, Sobmad, and General Barkark visits Alibaba. Sinbad guesses that Sobmad is the informant who leaked army information to the Fog Troop. Sobmad admits it to be true and tells them Ahmed acquired a huge debt from the Ku Empire, and as collateral, he will use the Balbad people's rights to turn their country into a slave production country. Within 5 days, Ahmed will sign the slave contract and marry the princess of the Ku Empire. The next morning, Alibaba visits Aladdin, who shows no sign of waking up. Alibaba expresses how he hasn't done anything to deal with the situation and how useless he is as compared to other heroes like Sinbad. Afterward, Alibaba rejects Sinbad's idea of making him king of Balbad to rebuild the country. While wandering the streets, Alibaba realizes that if he doesn't help his people, then they all will become slaves. Alibaba then meets Qasim, who tells him that he is aware of Slave Plan and he intends to start a rebellion. Alibaba rejects his plan and tells him he will think of a solution that doesn't involve people's lives. After he comes back, he asks Sinbad to teach him how to use his jinn. Alibaba hides Qasim's plan from Sinbad and learns from him diligently, learning how to cover his body in flames. To stop Qasim's plan, Aladdin goes to the palace alone and orders the guards to open the gate for him, the third prince of Balbad. Alibaba stops the mass from charging into the palace and assures them that he will change the country. When he enters the palace grounds, Ahmed orders 3 royal soldiers of the Ku Empire to kill him. During the fight, struggles to equip Anand's sword. When he was at a losing point, the faces of all the people who believed in him appeared before his eyes, and he thinks about how Aladdin believes he is a true hero. He regains his fighting spirit and successfully equips Amon's sword and defeats the first guard. Morgiana later also joins him and fights the second guard and his army of monkeys, allowing Alibaba to move forward. When Alibaba fights the third guard, he runs out of Magoi and creates some fire with oil to power up his Amon's sword for a short time and slashes the enemy in half. When Alibaba enters the royal chambers, Ahmed orders the guard to kill him. Unexpectedly, Sobmad gathers his courage to stand against his brother and orders the guards to retreat and let Alibaba talk with the king. Ahmed shows resistance by mocking Sobmad and attacking Alibaba. Alibaba easily fends him off and asks him to resign from the throne. At the same time, the princess of the Ku Empire pays a visit because of the commotion. Upon understanding the whole matter, the princess asks for the reselection of the king to marry her, but Aladdin declares that he will abolish the monarchy and turn Balbad into a democratic country. Aladdin asks the princess for the annulment of all former treaties of the Ku Empire and Balbad, and in return offers the help to Ku Empire in trade. With Sinbad's persuasion, the princess accepts Alibaba's request and leaves to report the matter to her father. Aladdin addresses his decision to the citizens of Balbad. The crowd cheers for him and some shed tears of joy, but Qasim appears to interrupt this joyous moment. He ignites hatred in people's hearts and uses the hallucination mist created by his member, Zainab. He provokes people to rebel and gets revenge from all the higher-ups and nobility, and demands for execution of the monarch. Therefore, the crowd starts the rebellion and bloodshed follows. Alibaba takes charge of the army and guides them on how to deal with a civilian's attack. Alibaba then decides to face Qasim himself. He confronts Qasim and the rest of the Fog Troop. He fights Qasim fiercely and gains the upper hand quickly. When Qasim was at his mercy, he couldn't bring himself to kill his childhood friends and thus withdraws from the fight and begs Qasim to retreat his forces. Suddenly, Qasim stabs himself with his own magical sword and turns him into a hideous black demon. When the black demon, Qasim, attacks royal guards, Alibaba cut off his hand, but he regenerates his arm using Black Ruck. Using Sinbad's Magoi, Alibaba put all his strength into his finishing attack, but Judar intercepts his attack and provides his power to Qasim. Thus, Qasim breaks Alibaba's swords. Alibaba was at the losing end when Aladdin appears with the flash of light. He deals with Judar and tells Alibaba to save Qasim. Aladdin restores the Alibaba sword using his magic, and Alibaba then strikes Black Demon, which swallows Alibaba inside. Inside the Black Demon, he meets Qasim's spirit. Qasim expresses his hatred for Ali Baba and tells him how both of them belonged to different worlds since birth, and Aladdin always had an easy and respectable life. The two attack each other using their respective ruq. Ali Baba then sees all of Qasim's painful memories and felt deeply sad after experiencing those memories. Qasim then stabs Ali Baba with his black ruq, but Ali Baba's words shatters his blade, making him realize that Ali Baba also always tried his best to get rid of differences between them. Qasim then cries and regrets for not accepting their differences. Then Black Demon breaks away and Qasim bids him farewell. Ali Baba calls him his friend for the last time before he disappears. Afterward, Ali Baba comes out from the Black Demon and cries, embracing Qasim's body, ending the rebellion. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.